Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show, and on this journey of continual evolution, just to seek wisdom from my elders as it relates to leadership, love, overcoming adversity, and the lineage of all music. And I got a chance today to speak to somebody who was able to do that on the bandstand and in the studios for decades, at a time when music was seen as a real viable profession, and there was a legitimate domestic touring circuit in the United States. My guest also dwelled a lot in the studios, playing on all sorts of different records. But he comes from the Duke Ellington School of All Music. Gary Grant, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you, Jake, for having me. I appreciate that. Yeah, I know that when you say sort of like the forerunners of the music world, you look up the word old in the dictionary and there's a picture of me. Go ahead.
There's a picture of what?
There's a picture of me when you look up the word old, because I have been around the block several times.
Well, I'm curious about if you can talk about your earliest what we would call road dogging or touring experience in your life.
Yeah, I left North Texas State, which is a jump-off school. All those schools I consider the jump-off schools to get into the big bands. And I left North Texas State and went with Bob Crosby and the Bobcats for about 6 weeks. And then after that, I jumped over to the Billy Maxted and his Manhattan Jazz Band, which was a New York-based Dixieland band.
Wow. Trumpet? You were playing trumpet in a Dixieland band?
Yeah. I mean, Dixieland is pretty common in the Dixieland band as far as I know.
Yeah.
And there was 2 trumpets, trombone, and a reed man that doubled on bass clarinet, and saxophone, tenor sax, and it was a four horn front, no singers, and all instrumentals. We did stuff like cornet, chop suey, and all that, those old kind of arrangements. It was great. It was a lot of fun.
Oh my God! Can you talk about like how unpretentious the Dixieland Cats, or even the? Did you even know any of the ragtime guys?
Yes.
Can you talk about how unpretentious those cats, like what the vibe that they had?
Oh, they were great. All those earlier years musicians were phenomenal players. They were just anything they could do to help. And it was no big thing to play a great chorus. You know, the solo and just the whole delivery was so much in the pocket. It was ridiculous. So, yeah, I really grew up around that influence of that era. In fact, we were with Billy's band in Indianapolis. We were doing a week there, and we stayed right across the hotel. Our hotel was right across the street from the club, the Coventry Inn it was called. And I looked out the window one morning after a late night hang and saw that the building was billowing in smoke.
Jeez.
And we had all the bandstand up there where the band played. There was a door there that was boarded up that went right to where the bandstand was. And the firemen were there, and they busted that door in, and they had the hoses ready to go in. Well, Billy didn't have a score to his music. In other words, if they went in there with a fire hose and knocked all that music over and put it in the water, that was the end of his band, because he couldn't replace it. He didn't have any other copies of the music.
Right.
So I went up there to a fireman who was wearing a respirator outfit, and I told him that I was with the band, and all the music was right there on the other side of this door that they busted in. You couldn't see anything in there. It was totally black. I said I knew where all the music was, and if he would accompanied me into the building, I'd scoop it up, and I said, I can hold my breath for 3 minutes. I says, I won't breathe any air. And I talked the guy into it, and he says, okay, let's go. And we went in there, and I scooped it up, came out, and essentially saved the book. So we were like 3 nights later, we were at another place working, and it ruined. The saxophone player had all his bass clarinet and stuff down, and so all that stuff got ruined. The drums got ruined. Everything got destroyed that day. Went in there the club was totally destroyed. And also, while I was standing by that door, they took Bill Sutcliffe was the name of the bass player. He's from London. Very, very good bass player.
Wow.
And he had his bass sitting there in the club, and they took it, and the firemen took it and threw it out the doorway. I saw it coming, and I did a bear hug on it, called it. It was 100-year-old bass,
Wow.
and I saved this bass. So I was like the hero of the day. And Billy was a stout, pretty hard leader. And when guys quit his band, there would be an altercation. He'd get up there and curse you out a little bit and hit you in the chest and, stuff like that. Well, I wasn't going to tolerate that in the first place. In the second place, I was his buddy because I saved his book and did all that stuff. So I left in good terms and stuff, and I went from there with Woody's band. And so that's the early years when I was on the road and got my education from the road of hard knocks,
Did you wind up? What was the circuit like? Did you ever do the Chitlin circuit?
I'm not sure what that is.
Well, I mean, it's like the black club circuit. No,
we did like the Riverboat in New York and the Riverboat room at the bottom of the Empire State Building, and that's where Woody Herman came in and heard me play in the band. I had some features in the band, and they hired me to go on Woody's band after that. And of course, that was my goal, to get out on a swinging band. And I went on the road with Woody for 2 years. And
what years were those?
That was the end of 1967 and 1968.
So, who was the rhythm section at that time?
Well, John Hicks.
Wow.
He played with
Yeah,
Miles.
John's one of my favorite cats, man.
Oh, he was incredible.
That dude's ridiculous, man.
And we had a bass player by the name of Arthur Harper, who had he was an excellent bass player. And Stan, I can't remember the drummer's last name. He was Canadian, and it wasn't John Van Owen and all those great guys, or
Can you? I want you to just talk to me about the inherently, like, what it felt like, the rhythm, the human rhythm. Somebody my generation and younger are coming up playing machine parts. It's very quantized rhythm. The music that we're talking about swings, but it's also very round. The music has a very round flavor. So can you describe that kind of rhythm that you took in for decades? Because it's vastly different from what's being inundated in cats' ears today.
The lead trombone player with Woody's band was Bobby Burgess, who his nickname was Butter. And I used to go and talk to Butter about the time and the feel.
I love this, dude. This is what I'm talking about. Butter, man.
And he the band, we got to, the band was so laid back that the ending chords, Woody would have to cut off the trumpets 3 times to stop us at the end, on the end of the chord. And one night in New York, he said, Gary, if you guys don't cut off with me tonight, he says, I'm going to fire the whole trumpet section. So I got the guys together. I said, guys, at Woody's teed off at us for not cutting off. And So we cut off with him for a couple of nights, and then we settled on 2 cutoffs, and that's the way it was, you know.
Right,
And,
right. It came to some
but
compromise.
it was that kind of feel. And Butter used to say, you know, I said, man, this thing is, you know, to play valued quarter notes instead of that, none of that. That's white tight ass.
Right, bullshit.
Phrasing.
Yeah.
Put some weight on those notes, and even though they sound like you're laying back and behind the time, you're really not, man. It gives weight to those notes, so it tugs. And learning, and Butter used to share with me that that's the last thing you learn is the time. So
Wow.
this thing with computers is very demanding. And of course, if you're sweetening parts that are already laid down, it's perfect time and stuff, you can't dilly-dally around and start laying back, because you like to be a fish out of water. And yet you can't be right on top of it because it's too stiff. So I have found that value of notes, the value of notes, do-da-da, do-da-da, as opposed
Yeah,
to
I love it.
that, you know,
Right.
that's white bread.
I mean, this is like really in the minutia. I mean, is this like, are you? Well, I also like was Broadbent in the band ever while you were there?
He was after me.
He was after you.
And Alan Vizzuti came on, and Bill Chase came back on the band when I left, and I just stopped off in L.A. and struggled around L.A. for 2 or 3 years, and then I went to Hawaii, and that's where I started recording. I did Elvis there in Hawaii, Aloha from Hawaii, and that was the launch of my recording career.
Before we go, I just want to know, like, were you hanging around with, like, Jim Keltner, Gary Foster, David Lindley back in the, like, were you playing jazz?
Absolutely. I had features with the band and stuff like that.
I'm talking about struggling in LA for 2 years before you went to Hawaii.
I did a lot of East LA Latin gigs, and you got to blow on that.
Whoa! Who were leading those sessions?
Well, those were like live bands. You know, you wouldn't know any of these people, but they were had steady weekend gigs, you know, and when they heard me play, I could bring the lead part, and I also could improvise. So I was quite busy doing that for you know, a couple of years. And,
like playing like Willie Bobo stuff, or like who were some
even more that, and even more authentic.
Wow!
More authentic,
Whoa!
authentic,
Whoa, dude!
Mexican and some Brazilian and stuff, you know, and it was really good. It was good charts, challenge, and good bands. Percussionists were great, and the singers, you know, they had the whole thing going. It was fun.
Congas, timbale, no trap set.
No traps.
No traps.
All percussions.
Can you talk about your experience playing in a drummerless group? I've been listening incessantly to Oscar Peterson, Herb Ellis, Ray Brown, and Stan Getz, and it's just swinging so hard. And I'm like, to me, like everybody from your generation had their own inner time feel. You were talking about it earlier. And you had to learn to balance yourself. You didn't necessarily, not everybody was mic'd up. I'm talking more about like, you know, on the bandstand, on live shows. But yeah, I just kind of wanted you to talk about how you cultivated your own individual sound.
Well, first is being able to play Joy Spring and play it with a click, some kind to keep yourself honest of the changes, keep yourself honest in the form, and keep yourself honest of what the tune is about. And so by doing that, by playing by yourself, when you get with another musician, when you and you're going through, all the tunes are structured for the most part, unless you were in the avant-garde. They were they were structured as what they were. So by doing that kind of playing and visualizing that you're with the piano player, I'm talking about the back room, getting your tools together.
Absolutely.
And to be able to do that. Now, for my most part of my career, I did not go out and play. I mean, I did a lot of big bands. I did a lot of groups. I did some touring. I went out with Quincy. I go out with Barbra Streisand, which doesn't count. I would go out with, different groups that was with me and Jerry Hay and the guys. It was like everybody was a composer.
I love it, man. Yeah.
Pitch, they could play, it was serious and just go out and do that live. But we took that experience, those chops, into the studio and created that with on the tape. It wasn't cut and paste. It wasn't even cut and pasting. This was all recording as a group, and we did phenomenal stuff together because of we would record and then it was back to the woodshed. Keep it going, keep yourself improving, and a lot of pride, a lot of effort, a lot of striving for better musicianship, and we did that. We accomplished that, and it was a lot of fun, a lot of work, and very rewarding.
Did you do any studio work outside of Light My Fire before you left for Hawaii?
I did not. I played on Trummy Young's record.
Who? I'm sorry. Who? Who's that?
Trummy Young, the trombone player that used to be with Satchmo.
Trummy Young. So, and what year was that?
That was 1972. Something like that.
You hadn't left for Hawaii at that point.
I was in Hawaii when I did that.
So yeah, because in '68 you were. I don't know if you were. Did you go to Chess Records to record that?
We were in Chicago.
Yeah, you're right. And I think Ed Soph might have been on drums.
Ed Soph was on drums.
Killing it, dude.
No, that was with Woody's band. That was Stan, the drummer. But
no, I have that album. I have that. Ed Soph's on drums. That whole album, Light My Fire.
That's. I'm sorry. It's been a few years.
No, no, but I mean, either way, that was the only. You never even pursued the studios in Los Angeles. You just stayed on the East Side playing salsa gigs.
I did pursue it, but it was a 5-year town.
Well, what does that explain at that time? Because this is very important to me. Like Emil Richards, rest in peace. I mean, he had to fight tooth and nail with Shelley and Alvin Stoller and all those cats to get doubles and get certain percussion instruments recognized. But I'm just talking about you had to pay your dues for 5 years, Gary Grant. Is that what you're saying?
I did not. I was there for a couple of years. I had taken off some time after leaving Woody's band.
Right.
And then I started playing again. I took 6 months off and didn't play, so I came back, and then that's when I started working East LA. And then very few trumpet players walked into LA and started working. It's a 5-year town. They had 15,000 trumpet players in LA at the time. And that's a lot of trumpet players. And a lot of them very, very good. So there was a lot of work, but, it's not, you just don't give your name to the union and they call you, yeah, it sounds like you'd be a good one. No, yeah, it had to be by word of mouth.
I'm talking like just the idea that here you are. After 5 years, it's just like you have to go through that 5 year period, or if you went through.
No. That's when during that time, that's when I left and went to Hawaii.
No. I understand that, but I want you to explain.
But then I came, but let me finish.
Yeah.
I came back to L.A. and my first year, I made, I don't know, 15 grand back in L.A. And then my next year, I made 75,000. So I was on my way at that point.
Dude, you caught fire in '76. Gary Grant catching fire. Neil Diamond, Beautiful Noise, Frank Cap, Juggernaut, Love and Conversation, Hamilton Frank and Dennison, School Days, Stanley Clark, Man Incognito, Alphonse Mouzone, Yesterday's Dreams, Alonzo Johnson, Funk in a Mason Jar, Harvey Mason, Patti LaBelle, Self-Titled, Norman Connors, Lee Oscar, The Brothers Johnson. I mean, it's just Letta and Bulu. But, ultimately, when you came back, what was the catalyst for you? What was your break to get into the studio so that you caught fire?
Chuck Finley was so busy. He was the Emeritus most valuable player.
Most valuable trumpeter, yeah.
Every year. And he was had the nickname Fearless Finley, and it was no joke. That joke, that wasn't just a ho-hum name. He was fearless, and he was so busy, it just wore him down, and he couldn't really do it all.
Yeah.
So he would, he would send me on dates. And he wouldn't even call the contractor. I'd show up, hi, I'm Gary Grant, and Chuck called me this morning, he's sick. Well, nice of him to call me and let me know. I said, well, I don't know anything about that, but I'm here.
Yeah.
And then I would do a real good job for him, and then I started working. So I had that avenue from Chuck sending me in and doing dates, and then Seawind, which was Jerry Hayes' band, came to town, and a few guys stayed with me, and then I was telling all the guys about Jerry Hay because I was now busy, and this is 1970. I'm going to say 75.
Right.
When they came to town, and then they would hire Jerry. Jerry would be at the Baked Potato the night before playing, and he'd play all this stuff up the double B's, and just by the time they did all the band stuff, of course, when you're struggling, and get home at 4 a.m, and then get up and go to MGM and do a date there with Chips or something, and there was 6 trumpets. And Jerry plays 6 trumpet, and he had this screen part. He walks in, and I mean, no extra money. They were tight. They were tight.
Yeah.
With the money, and of course, after he did it, nailed it. I mean, it went up to double D's, double E flats, sustained notes while the band's. It was ridiculous, and so. These guys were coming up, and we went in there, and then we hooked up with Quincy, and that was game over. Then that was game over.
Can you just talk about, before you got into, before Quincy, just an experience where everybody, I've talked to a lot of the guys in Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and a lot of them was interesting because a lot of times they'd play a couple of times, and they get in. They have RCA rented out for 2 weeks or whatever. So I mean, it was just a party atmosphere. But when they did get down to business, they'd play a couple of tunes just to be live ready, and then they would break it up though between the rhythm sections when they wouldn't play all live. Was there a time where you guys played all live in the studio, like in a?
Of course. How about direct to disc, where you do the whole side of the record without stopping?
I'm just saying, talk about one of those, because I'm just saying that doesn't exist anymore. You know.
No, it does not. And it was very high recording. We did that with.
You know what I'm more interested in? It's not even about the fidelity. I want to know about your mental toughness, because you had to hit it. It was that. It was just being run.
I didn't like it so much because you couldn't. You were on pins and needles for the same money that you did as a sweetening, and what it was, I mean, it doesn't matter what it is that you can't sneeze. You know what I mean? It's you have to be your performance has to be flawless. And if you're sweetening, if you chip a note, let's punch it in. Okay, great. But that I didn't particularly care for that because there was rehearsals involved. I didn't like to rehearse.
Right.
I prefer to just go in and hit it.
That's what. Can you talk about? I mean, I'm not a musician, but I consider, easy for me to say, but I just consider rehearsal to be a dirty word.
Well, it's necessary. Don't get me wrong; it is necessary.
No, but I want you to talk about it from the jazz aesthetic, from the improvisational aesthetic, when you're wearing it out.
Well, that's true. A lot of times, you'll record something and they'll say, "Oh man, that sounds great." Like a big band thing with Pat Williams or whatever, and they say, "Oh man, that sounds great." One more for safety. Why?
Right. Just that word safety means it's not going to burn as hard. I remember Shelly Manne. I mean, I was going to ask you about this cat. Sort of in my spirit today was Gary Barone, because like Shelly's band in the early 70s, Castleman, Gross, Wofford, John Morell, he had 3 days rented out in the studio, and to cut this album. And the first day, he's like, "Okay, guys, we're gonna just work through the tunes today, and then the 2 days after, we'll record." And so everybody was totally relaxed, and they ripped it up. And after the first day, Shelley had been recording it unbeknownst to them, and he said, "All right, we're done. That's it. We're good." And everybody freaked out. Everybody thought they could have done a better job, better solos. It's called Mankind. It's probably the most ridiculous album I've ever heard in my life. I mean, they were playing opposite a lot of the early 70s weather reports and that kind of stuff, but this is the most ferocious stuff, and it was because they were relaxed. They didn't think that the record button was on.
I always call it intentions.
Right.
When you go to intent to play something, if you don't have your inner soul together on that, you bring in that white-itis again, and you bring in the tightness of that event,
right?
And that causes all kind of issues. So, it is a part of it. Shelley was a sly devil, huh? And he was old school, man. And
dude, can you tell me about your relationship with Shelly Manne, dude? Please. I mean, that man, like, it's such an honor to be able to talk to you, because Shelley, I mean, Keltner was calling Shelley at 17, like, waking him up from a nap and asking him, like, what kind of cymbals he had,
And all those guys I recorded with and worked with.
Absolutely, I know, man, yeah.
And they were all phenomenal,
monsters, man, yeah.
Like Calloway and those guys are just phenomenal musicians. And at one point we became so busy and so much in demand because we were on those huge sellers, and the music business is fickle. Everybody jumps on the bandwagon when there's a huge hit, Everybody wants a part of that action. What's the form of the music? Why are they doing it? Let's do the sound alike. Let's get in there. And so also, too, if you're, as a horn section, which I was, being very successful in that arena, well, yeah, and they used to have, like, in the 70s, they would have 250,000 budgets for a record. And, try to get that these days. And
yeah, it was just gushing and gushing. I mean, it was the record companies could send a band out to promote a record, a 40-city tour, and lose money and write it off because they were making so much based on the listening medium was records, and the radio played the records, and it was still,
And the record labels ripped off the artists like crazy.
Yeah, see, I think that's the underbelly. That's the that's something that people don't,
And now it's moved to the internet with like streaming and stuff like that. When it goes to Apple Music or
no, you don't got to explain it to me, man. As a rogue journalist, I can see. I'm on Spotify. This interview is going to go on Spotify, but just the general.
I don't care who they are. There's so many fingers in the pie, and the musicians, they get very little of that pie, and it's just switched from record labels to the internet.
Nah, you're right. Yeah.
And it's gonna change, man. All this stuff is going to change for the artists. It's going to take a minute, but it's coming. And this honest corruption that's in this world is going to be rectified, because that old saying that it's better you screw your fellow man first before they screw you is gone. That's bullshit. And we all must stand up to realizing that we are brothers and sisters. We stand together as a society, and that this thing that's been fabricated, which is an illusion that people buy into, and yet there's a small group of people that are self-service, and they are the ones that unfortunately are calling the shots, and they're going to be removed. And so this is going to open up all kind of doors for the arts, for the people that want to just create and be in the music, and be able to sustain their lives with survival, instead of going out and what do you do, Gary? Well, I'm a waiter right now, but I'm hoping I'll get into the studios. I never had to do that. I never did, but I knew people that did, and they were wonderful musicians, and it just beat them down because they for their life contract or whatever it is, it didn't click for them, and it was too much of a hardship. And I saw a lot of guys pack it up and leave. They would be in town those 4 and 5 years, and yet they were still struggling. And to make any kind of mortgage, to have any kind of family life, and we were doing, we were gluttons. We were just, the phone would ring. It wasn't that I was calling anybody; it was they were calling us.
Yeah, you're. I mean, one album that kind of got me into, it definitely. The guys have become dear brothers of mine. This absolutely raucous 1981 recording with Alan Ferguson and Freddie Hubbard. That video, when they go around and introduce everybody on the video. I don't know if you've ever seen the video, but
of course.
Yeah, and man, like Max and Abe are like swinging. I was like, should I be taking this seriously? It changed my life, man. That stuff was. I mean, to me, like that was. Freddie, obviously Indianapolis. Like the lore there. Like he's not. Freddie was a four. He wasn't a forerunner, but he was damn close to. He was maybe the best trumpeter of all time.
To me, there's no best because there's been so many great ones. But Freddie was a creative force. God, man, I used to listen to him play, and I said, Lord of mercy, and then I became very good friends with Freddie, and in fact, on that video, when it starts, they're shooting the camera, and Freddie, and I'm walking up, and Freddie's at the door of Ocean Way where we were going in, and he looked at me and he says, Gary Grant, well, I'm not going to play. That's what he says to open that video.
That guy was so smart, man.
Oh, he was phenomenal, man. And
wow.
We rehearsed all that music. There's a whole record of music where we rehearsed it in the afternoon, and then it went down live with the video stuff that evening.
Wow.
I mean, that's it. And
wow.
Yeah. It just we went in and got all the kinks out, and then and Freddie just brought it, man. It was a lot of fun. Vince DeRosa was on that.
Is Vince still with us?
Vince is still alive. He's in, I think, Montana.
Dude, can you? I would love to connect with him, man.
I don't think he's able to do that at this point.
Listen. So talk to me a little bit about a couple of things. To me, well, in the studio, can you just talk a little bit about when you in your practice repertoire, when you practiced when you were younger? To me, Jim Hall, Sonny Rollins, John Scofield, people like that. I mean, when they're practicing, they're playing what they don't know. They're playing beyond what they know, and they're improvising. And in some cases, it sounds amazingly beautiful, like those masters who I just mentioned. So, what are the good things that you would recommend cats to practice on? Because I think Joe Hunt, the great drummer, was on the road with Stan Getz, and this is going back, I don't know, mid '60s, and he was doing all this stuff on his drum pad, like paradiddles and just playing rhythms over. And Gary Burton came in at one point. He goes, "Just stop doing that, man. Like it's getting boring. You played the same way." The same way the night before. It's getting boring. And I think a lot of cats think they're practicing and helping themselves, and in fact they might. What would be your recommendations about effective use of practice time?
Well, it's different with everybody. You got to do whatever you do to warm yourself up. I can warm myself up in about 7 minutes. Seriously, warm myself up in 7 minutes. And that with the trumpet, that can be. I mean, I'd be recording the night before and in a club and just a scorching big band, and then be at an 8 o'clock downbeat call the next morning playing French music with a 75-piece orchestra, and Jesus. that separates the men from the boys. So this versatility of being able to produce a sound as opposed to hit a note on the piano. Listen, the touch on the piano is everything. Bill Evans, bless you for bringing the beautiful music that you have brought to this planet. And all those guys, man, there's so many beautiful piano players, but their tone is their touch to the keys on the piano, whereas we generate that sound as a brass player. The same thing with drums, all instruments. So just by warming up the coordination of your body to produce that is different from everybody. I've had a lot of dates where I can go in and wouldn't warm it up at all.
Right.
And get in there and just take it easy and let the blood get into the chops and stuff like that, and get the air moving and those basic things which keep you reeled in over a period of 45 years of doing it. where I didn't do any other job except play the trumpet, which is a blessing in itself.
Right.
To be able to do that and go into the long years and be able to perform it at a high level. I'm still recording now. I've done a record recently, 13 tracks. I'm also producing an artist, and I'm featured on this. Of course, I'm the producer. But the artist-singer is a lot of fun. I got Vinny Cauda playing drums on it.
Dude, Vinny and I had a ball, man. I love that cat.
He's a monster, man.
Yeah, he's great. He's just a great dude, just a good guy.
So, just going through these different approaches and warm-ups is individual, because a jazzer, I'll call the guys that say, man, you warm up this way and you play that way. Well, I'm not sure if they change the warm-up, they're going to change the play. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think it's like the deodorant you wear. When somebody asks me about a mouthpiece, for example, on the horn, I have nothing to say about it. I do not. If you want to have a bigger sound, get a bigger mouthpiece. That's about it.
But you know what I want to ask you about is that, listen, you guys all, the guys that I'm talking about, Ed Green,
Yeah.
all these cats, Calloway, at the core, there was this sort of fork in the road where, you guys had families, starting your lives, like the studios, you could sing for your supper, as opposed to guys like, you look what happened to Chet Baker, and you look at what happened. He's pawning horns, he's
But he had other personal problems too. That issues.
No, but what I'm saying is, can you talk about what you perceive? The jazz lifestyle today is tighty-whitey, what you've been talking about. It's white tightness today, very classicalized version. Jazz back then was basically a black subculture. I'm talking about the 60s and 70s. What was in your mind, did people aspire for that jazz lifestyle? And I'm talking about scuffling. You listen to McCoy Tyner, Rahsaan Roland Kirk, Sam Rivers. These guys were like, there was nothing commercial about it. And yet, you guys, that was your first love, at least most of the guys I talked to. And I just wanted you to talk about what your impression of the jazz life was ultimately, and probably much better off for it, you chose the studio scene.
Yeah, I had 2 beautiful kids, I had a beautiful wife. Why do I want to live out of a suitcase? I didn't want to do that. I wasn't that kind of dedication. I recorded with McCoy as a studio guy with the Jerry Hay horns. That was enough for me. That's enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I dig.
So that commitment is something that is, it doesn't make me any less of a musician because I didn't have that commitment, but it did. It's an individual choice that if you're going to live out of a suitcase, we refer to people that did that as road rats, live out of a suitcase, you do that day in and day out, and you're on the thing, and you're in a hotel room, you got these, it's just traveling, getting up, and some people just love it. I never got excited about that too much. I could never sleep on the bus.
Yeah, I would never be able to sleep on the bus, man.
And, the Woodies, man, we were hitting 500 miles a night.
No, dude, Erskine told me that he learned how to sleep sitting up.
That's right. I'd go up and talk to the bus driver because I knew he could keep his eyes open.
Oh, my God, dude, my back's hurting just thinking about it.
So, all these things are is pretty wide. experience. I'm going to move outside here for a second. The experience of everybody, and it was beautiful, man. You know, we got the respect from all musicians because of our ability to play together, our ability to be into their music like we were in the band for 10 years, and our ability to be a part of it, you know. That's a certain amount of musicianship that intrigued me. But, you know, you have to do some M11s on that. That's in the sound stages and holding whole notes and whatever. You know, and that's part of it too. That's not very fulfilling. And however, I always looked at it like if I play with another musician, I play a dyad together, and we have got that resonance between that musician and myself, I'm pretty happy. You know, I mean, not as a steady diet of just two guys by, you know what I mean?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
But there's a certain joy in being able to do that, and that helped those say musically down times, which is not. It wasn't musically down to the composer that wrote it. It was his life. So, you know, you try your best, you do your best, you always gel musically with these, you know, I recorded on probably close to 700, 800 movies in my career.
Unbelievable.
And just being as a soloist and as a first trumpet player with 100-piece orchestras, you know, and that experience right there was enough to have me, you know, when we recorded 1812, that was the first time I saw 4 Fs on a trumpet part. At the end, 4 Fs. Man, we had the viola players and the violin players cupping their shoulder up to their ear to try to... We said, man, this is our chance with an orchestra to really put the pedal to the metal, you know. And
did you? I'm curious. Does David Axelrod? Did you work with that cat?
Yes.
Can you talk about the projects you worked with him on? Because I mean, I love that cat, man.
I can't remember, but I know I've worked with him. Axelrod.
Did you have a chance? Well, this is a great question. I'm glad I thought of this. So, you know, that original Wrecking Crew, you know, Blaine,
yeah.
Earl Palmer, Bill Pullman, Glenn Campbell, you know, and then.
Oh yeah.
I'm curious. Here's the thing. And then you had sort of the second iteration of it, but I feel like you're part. But as far as who were the Wrecking Crew horn section?
You know,
Lou Blackburn. Lou Blackburn, right? Lou Blackburn was one of those guys.
Yeah, that was bless Lou, and that was in Detroit. But when they essentially came out to Motown with Gordy, you know, that they were out here doing a lot of stuff too. After Detroit, they did a mess of stuff. So I recorded quite a few dates with the Wrecking Crew and Boozy on bass and all that stuff, you know.
I'm sorry, who's Boozy?
Boozy Hawkins, the bass player.
I've never heard of that cat.
Oh yeah, he was with the Wrecking Crew. Oh yeah, he was serious.
Wait, let's just slow down here for a second, because the only the bass player from the Wrecking Crew that I'm only familiar with is Carol Kay.
That's with Carol Kay, of course.
Who is this? Now, who is this? I've never even seen his name before.
Oh man, Boozy Hawkins, he wore high-top shoes. Oh, yeah, he was serious. He was...
How do you spell his first name?
Boosey, I think.
Wow. And
yeah,
go ahead. And so I mean, he was like an upright player, or he played like electric, or
no, electric.
Right. Jim Huart was there.
Jim Huart.
I mean, my man, my this is a little bit later. Was Wilton.
We used to say Jim Huart from heaven.
Exactly. No, the other cat was Jimmy Bond, bass.
I'm not sure. Right. Is he New York?
Jimmy Bond, somehow him and Earl Palmer, Tedesco. Those cats were you their age, or are they older than you?
Oh, they're older than me. They were in the 50s.
Who were the 50s trumpet cats in the studio that you basically replaced?
Well, you're talking about Conrad Gasso.
Wait, who? I'm sorry, who? Who's that?
Conrad Gasso.
Oh, Conrad. See, dude, Gary, this stuff, because not until Peter Asher did accompanists. Jazz did it a lot, but those Wrecking Crew guys never got accompanist credits. So I'm curious about who.
That's what, like with Billy Mays band and stuff like that. And Yuan Racy on Tootie's trumpets. That whole album, Yuan Racy played lead on it. Yuan Racy was a fantastic. He was first trumpet player at MGM for 20 years.
How do you spell his first name?
Yuan, U-A-N, Racy.
Where did he come? Kurt. I'm not that. You're dropping names. I have no. I'm not. See, Amel, Julius Wechter, Palmer, Blaine, Tedesco gets all the publicity, but the horn sections, no.
But that was in the 60s, man, and also in the 70s. I worked with Tom Tedesco in the 70s, and he was a character.
No, but that what I was talking about was that a lot of those, Tedesco was the lead. I mean, the stories of him and Zappa and Joe Pass hanging out together are extraordinary. But I mean, at the end of the day, Gary, I remember talking to David Spinoza, and he was talking about going into Atlantic Studios, and Dr. John and Arif Mardin wanted him to put a solo on this song. It was the Meter song, or sorry, it was Dr. John's song, Right Place, Wrong Time, and they originally was going to be a sax solo, but they wanted Spinoza to lay down a guitar solo, and he tunes up for a minute, plays it, and hits this massive clam. And he's thinking, okay, he finishes the tune. He's like, I'm going to try that again. And they said, no, it's perfect. We're done. 2 weeks later, he's like, are you kidding me? The song Right Place, Wrong Time takes on mass stardom. He's in a cab one day with 6 guitars around his shoulders, and the cab driver said, hey, this is my new favorite tune. And he turns it up, and it was Right Place, Wrong Time. And Spinoza said, hey, that's me. He's like, yeah, you're full of shit, man.
Do you know why, Jake?
What?
Do you know why that became such likable recordings?
Well, I want to know that answer, but I also want to know if you ever hit a clam that wound up making it as a hit. The point is he made a mistake. It's very evident in the song that he made a mistake. Louis Shelton, it was very prevalent with guitar players. I'm curious about, did Gary Grant ever hit a clam, but it turned out to be a top hit?
I never did. I never had that. I did. I remember doing a movie date with Henry Mancini, and I was playing first trumpet, and the very last note, it wasn't very high. I went, on the very last note, of course, Hank looked at me and he got that eyebrows up and oh gee, where's the last note? And I looked at him and I said, I've been getting a lot of calls because people see the value of what I just did. And the orchestra laughed like crazy. We did it again, no problem.
Right.
But
Never though a song that became that was a radio friendly tune for a long time, and I mean Spinoza can hear
the issue is that when you try to create those clams, okay, those there are no mistakes in music,
right,
really.
right.
But when you try to create that looseness and this is the way it is, it becomes another ballgame because you have the intentions of trying to create that, and it's never was intended to be an intention. So it changes the you know, I'm recording now music with these all live guys, and it's layered, and this sounds marvelous. It's not a quartet of mouths in a studio in New York. It's not that music, and that music was performed and sanctioned by Miles because he had a vision of those things being a part of the music, being part of who he was. And he didn't emphasize it, but he did accept it. You know, he didn't like it, but he accepted it. So that's the way it, you know, the way it goes. And so a lot of people, for years and years and years, when people would record stuff, they would say, well, hey, man, that's okay. It's jazz. It's jazz. It's jazz. Well, that was on this concept that clams were permissible in the music because other people had a lot of success from being in that natural environment. But it really was a cop-out for the execution. And once it goes to that, it's not real in my book.
Well, so, but to me, there's a visceral quality. I mean, to imperfection is perfection. I just feel like there's got to be a balance because by the late 70s, that efficiency model sucked all the soul out of studio music. And so, like, there's, you know, it really comes down to this balance between accepting humanity with, because, I mean, Louis Shelton was like Last Train to Clarksville, same kind of thing, hit a flub. He flubbed it, became a hit. You know, the audience will never know, but it's about going for it. And it became a formula trip. And yes, you know what? Thank God, in some ways it did, because my heroes, Ray Neapolitan, you, all these cats, you guys made a living off of that stuff. But to me, there's like the visceral burn that needs to be there and can easily be replicated, but people are obsessed with perfection because we have the technology to allow that to happen.
Absolutely, and that's been our nemesis, you know. And then you got the record labels and the A&R people that promote dumbass harmonic music and
dumbass harmonic music. Dumbass.
So you know, as a studio player, you either you're for hire. You know, that's what you are. You're for hire. So how do you join that group? And when you leave, everybody's got smiles. Man, I've done so many recordings as a sweetening horn section where the booth would stand up and applaud the horn section when we were done. And that was enough for me for the live playing because they saw it all go down, especially in the tape days before the computers.
Right.
And you know, you the times have changed. The circle will be made, but
the circle will. It's been broken. It's going to come back together.
But you know, like there's a certain part of how do you get all the virtuosos together? That's another thing. You got
Well, I also think, I was just say, there's not, I mean, Gary Grant, I mean, and Ndugu Chancellor, rest in peace, he told me when I visited him in California, he's like, some of those virtuosos, the virtuosa cats and the ones that are in the academy today, they're not playing enough with the people with rubber bands on their horns. There's not enough grease.
Well,
there's
they're
not enough grease, man. You guys were always cooking with grease, and you got paid for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's go back to that blessing again, okay?
Right.
Because that was rare, and it was a matter of timing. It was a matter of our personal commitment to music. We never talked essentially about the money. We never did. But it came to us because we were on top. We were the number one horn section. Muscle Shoals horns, the Blues Brothers. Those are all my buddies and friends. They never did the amount of recording that we did, and so we were blessed in that we were in the right spot. People, they had a lot of success. I'm not downing them. Hey, listen, Sergei Nikarakoff, you don't know who he is. He's a trumpet player from a Russian trumpet player that defected and went to Israel, and then he lives in Paris, and he goes all over Europe, all over the world, and performs as a classical trumpet player and he came and stayed with me in my home for a week. And this guy I listened to him play, and I said, man, I'm a joke compared to this guy. And yet he couldn't do what I do. It's not a matter of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, everyone has their own, Gary Grant.
He's got his own thing, which was at the top. And what a magnificent musician and an aspiration. So I think just keeping our dedication to bringing the most love we can in the music, and going through these times. These are very trying times, man, with the intention of dumbing down music. You ask a young kid, let's say a kid 12 years old, have you ever heard of Mozart or Mendelssohn or Wagner or Tchaikovsky or any of that stuff? They'll say, who? So the education's into the masters, of which is so many people derive a lot of their music from that knowledge. Period.
Well, that's why I'm doing my show.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, like they're everything's a tool. The problem is, there's massive corruption, deception, and not enough critical thinking. The music program has been taken out of the schools. To me, music is it's not seen as a viable profession anymore. But I mean, we can pick this up. Let's plan on doing set 2 sometime, later in the summer, man. This was really a ball.
Yeah, man, I'll be down for it, Jake.
Yeah, man. It's been a long time coming, man. But yeah, dude, that's the perfect thing. Like, yeah, everybody, even guys in the jam band world, we're talking about very popular, successful players. They still have to follow Victor Wooten on stage. Like, somebody's always going to have better chops than you. But the question is, what is your niche? How can you cut above the rest of the people that are trying to do what you do and cut above the morass? That's it. And
how do you develop your sound and the expression that you want to do, and without being a competitive. And that word better, man, there ain't no better. There ain't no better, because who's the best?
That's right.
Is also an illusion. And if you have your heart in it, man, I've heard guys Chet Baker, for example, as beautifully as he played, he could play the funkiest stuff, and just depending on how his health was at that particular time, what a wonderful, magnificent trumpet player and artist. And and then look at Lee Morgan. Lee Morgan, man, what are we talking
That's a great
about?
documentary, man. No, I mean, Woody Shaw died in a subway car. It's not a good.
It's always been about that with the artists.
And yet, Gary, I'm not listening to Formula Trip music. The music that's getting me through these times, keeping me inspired, along with my kids.
Well,
it's Woody Shaw. Woody Shaw's music is right there. It's on the pulse.
Absolutely, you're in the minority, my friend. Most of the people are listening to Formula music.
You're absolutely right. You know what? But I can only do what I can do to change my world, like you have changed your world.
Yeah, absolutely. And talk about it and say these names so somebody will be curious and go out and listen to it.
Exactly, dude. Because someone's going to turn on a digital copy of Ride Like the Wind with Gary Grant and Freddie Hubbard long after we've left this planet. It could change their life. That's it.
And the music is, ignorance. It's not a past, Jake. It's not. Because you don't know about something that we're being this scamdemic and all this crap that's happened to us as a society is because you weren't aware of it. Well, I'm aware of it, and I'm nobody. So it's not a past. You can't be a person
Gary. Then that is the least talked about thing in our media. So we'll pick this up next time because the truth is, people get a pass. They're getting fooled. It's on the people, man. It's on the people. Period.
We are the ones in charge, my friend.
But you can't cop out. Ignorance is not a pass, dude. No way, Gary Grant.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Bless you, brother.
Thank you, Jake, for having me today, man, and sharing my experiences. And all I can say is that this world is changing. The artists are going to be so much music coming out, and the next decade is going to make our minds go whirlybird. It's going to be incredible for the human race. That's my prediction.
You know what? I'm on that soul ship, man. So we'll talk soon, man.
Great, Jake. Have a great night. Much love to you and your family and all the listeners.
All right, much love, man. Thank you, brother.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.